Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley said she considers frozen embryos created through in vitro fertilization babies, siding with the Alabama Supreme Court on an issue that resonates with conservative voters 3 days before South Carolina's primary. "Embryos, to me, are babies," Haley told NBC News in an interview broadcast Wednesday. In an appearance on the CNN program King Charles on Wednesday night, she tempered those remarks. Justices on the state's top court last week recognized unimplanted human embryos as children, ruling that a state law allowing parents to recover punitive damages for their children's deaths includes the parents of unborn children, regardless of ability to survive outside the womb. The decision is seen as making it more difficult for people to conceive via fertility treatments. "When you talk about an embryo, you are talking about, to me, that's a life, and so I do see where that's coming from when they talk about that," Haley said in the interview. On CNN, however, she told hosts Gayle King and Charles Barkley that "I didn't say that I agreed with the Alabama ruling. The question that I was asked is, do I believe an embryo is a baby? I do think that if you look in the definition, an embryo is considered an unborn baby, and so yes, I believe from my stance that that is. Our goal is to always do what the parents want with their embryo. It is there's so any physician that is in control of those embryos, they owe it to those people to make sure they protect that embryo and that they do with that embryo what those parents want done with that embryo," Haley said. The former South Carolina governor, who shared that her son, now 22, was conceived via artificial insemination, has previously stated that she's unapologetically pro-life. During last year's Republican primary debates, Haley said states should decide their own abortion policies and downplayed the idea of a federal ban. As governor, she signed a bill that banned abortion at 20 weeks with no exceptions for rape or incest. Haley trails the GOP frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, by 25 percentage points in her home state, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average. The Palmetto State, where religious conservatives make up a significant portion of the electorate, holds its primary Saturday. While she's vowed to stay in the race at least through Super Tuesday on March 5, Haley's path to the nomination would be tough to chart if Trump were to win by a large margin in South Carolina, building on his decisive wins last month in Iowa and New Hampshire. Read more: Alabama embryo ruling gives abortion foes tool to expand fight. Asked about the impact the Alabama decision could have on those seeking IVF treatment, Haley said on NBC, "It's incredibly personal, it's incredibly sensitive, and I think that's the conversation the doctor needs to have with the patient. Let's never underestimate the importance of the relationship between a doctor and patient when they're doing any of that." In a recent development last week, justices on the state's top court recognized unimplanted human embryos as children and issued orders that a state law allow parents to recover punitive damages for their children's deaths includes the parents of unborn children, regardless of ability to survive outside the womb. The former South Carolina governor told NBC News, "When you talk about an embryo, you are talking about, to me, that's a life, and so I do see where that's coming from when they talk about that." Earlier, she signed a bill that banned abortion at 20 weeks as governor that gave no exceptions to rape or incest cases. When asked about the impact the Alabama decision could have on those seeking IVF treatment, the Republican presidential candidate said, "It's incredibly personal, it's incredibly sensitive, and I think that's the conversation the doctor needs to have with the patient. Let's never underestimate the importance of the relationship between a doctor and patient when they're doing any of that," reported Bloomberg. Alabama Supreme Court judgment might make it more difficult for people to conceive via fertility treatments, as the court recently ruled that frozen embryos can be considered children under state law. Nikki Haley disclosed that her son, who was now 22, was conceived via artificial insemination. She previously stated that she's unapologetically pro-life. Haley had said that states should decide their own abortion policies and had downplayed the idea of a federal ban during last year's Republican primary debates. As per Real Clear Politics polling average, Haley trails behind the GOP frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, by 25 percentage points in her home state and is the only remaining competitor to Trump. Other competitors, including biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, dropped out of the race after the Iowa contest. The majority opinions of the judges said that an 1872 statute that allows parents to sue over the wrongful death of a minor child applies to unborn children, and extrauterine children are no exceptions. Even before birth, all human beings have the image of God, and their lives cannot be destroyed without effacing His glory, Chief Justice Tom Parker wrote in a concurring opinion, according to the New York Times. Days after the ruling, the University of Alabama at Birmingham announced it was pausing IVF treatments. We are saddened that this will impact our patients' attempt to have a baby through IVF, but we must evaluate the potential that our patients and our physicians could be prosecuted criminally or face punitive damages for following the standard of care for IVF treatments, the university announced.